Are they here?
Yeah, they're here.
Oh, they're here. Oh my God, let's go.
So,
Oh, there's a bunch of boxes in there.
oh, it's more than you're expecting. This is hot off the press custom. This is a product that does not exist. They were starting to prototype it. With the success we've had on the FC, we've kind of begged and pleaded to say, hey, let's move forward on this. And I'm willing to be a guinea pig. Obviously, they know that if it doesn't work on our channel, it's a bad idea. But they've flow tested this thing, and I'm so excited to unveil this. So this might look like, okay, you know what? It's another surge tank, and you are right. It is a surge tank. Well, it was filled with mineral spirits because they were testing it prior to shipping it here. So what this surge tank is, pump 1, pump 2, this is a new product from them. It is beefy. This little surge tank is more capable of flowing fuel, higher levels of fuel, than my existing setup on the 4-rotor. In this small size too. They made sure that, you know, it's not gonna pull vacuum, it's not gonna do anything other than just flow the fuel we need. When you make it that nice,
Don't say it.
you gotta make it twice.
Oh.
I regret nothing. And so this is a little taller than our previous one. I think it's a 2.7 liter. The funny part is that if fuel is cut off from this, we're probably talking about half a second. No, just kidding, it's not that bad. You can do almost a full pull off of one of these. Assuming you're already idling and it cuts halfway through the pull, you could do a full pull from this. But the nice part is we'll have the tank, we'll have either A, the 50-gallon tank, or B, like a 10-gallon tank that we can kind of hot swap between the two. Surge pump stays in place, and we have, okay, here's how much of reserve we want for this sort of race, and this stays the same. The lifter pump, just like the FC, lifter pump's just always filling this full of liquid, and then anything excess is dumping back into the tank, making sure that you get that air going between this. Because if you block these off and just simply pressurize this, like send this fuel out to the world, out to the engine, it will pull a massive vacuum inside of here and stop your flow. I have to replace the non-compressible liquid inside of here with, what, air or more liquid. So that's what all these other holes are for. We got tons of power going into this. This surge pump, they've tested it. So this is not just hypothetical, this is actual testing, raw data that they've got. 38 amps for over 1,000 liters per hour. The number, you know, you can check it out on their website. This is twice the size of the FC's surge tank in the same exact size. So it'll flow over 1,600, 1,700 horsepower on the 4-rotor beautifully. And
What are in these other boxes, huh?
oh yeah, yeah. And so
there's more.
Oh, their little kit. So
Oh,
it's that sick little kit to hold the filter. So we'll have that little dangle here, filter off the front. He sent me all the controllers, the packaging, how much this thing weighs. It's phenomenal. And you can see it says 20 amp load max. And so I asked him, I'm like, at peak pressure, I need to make sure that I don't have a circuit breaker that fails at the very top. I have my whole power module will go to 40 amps. So this will go to 38 amps, absolutely any which way you try, maxed out, pressurized, over pressurized. And so 2 of these little guys wire in to there. And yes, as you may suspect, we've got low to high. So even though it only uses 38 amps at peak pressure, peak resistance, it'll be down to like 12 at idle. So this thing will just be sitting there, not causing the alternator to build tons of heat either. All of this shows you why we're back. We're back, and we're coming back big time with this 4-rotor. Like, in all the ways you'd imagine. Everything that we wanted to make solid. I see the handful of, not you guys, the ones that are the supportive people, but the people that are like trying to talk shit about the car. We were testing so many different things all at once, so fuck off, first of all. But second of all those things that we've learned, we're not gonna sit still. And so here's the like polished version of all those things to make it work even better.
If you're fucked, you get fucked. But if you're fucked over here, then you get fucked again. So you just gotta choose how you want to get fucked, pretty much.
I don't want it over the diff because then like we gotta think of things to service.
Yeah, this is the best spot because this comes out right here. This upper bar could come out.
You know, you got the plate under it. I think it's fine to put the surge tank in the middle. God, Picasso right there.
Right there, you know?
Yeah.
This is where I had thought. Especially if I line it up over here with this bracket, like this would look good.
Visually, as long as the surge tank is centered to the car.
Yes, like right there. That center. You guys see center?
It looks pretty centered. And that's good because it puts the fuel lines on that side of the car.
Yeah, so I wanted this to come up this way, on this side of the car, away from that side. And then also I can make those lines come up down over there and follow this tube.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I like this.
You know.
This is nice.
This is nice.
Well, I can't always be here at 2 in the morning like this, watching over my babies like that. I'm often out of the shop and or out of home. I'm not in any one spot very long. This is a very weird life I live, and thanks to Simply Safe, I can keep it simply safe. After I did all the setup, I pay one monthly fee. I don't have to worry about anything else. I can log into the app right now, watch myself filming this. Watch live. There we go, get a little clicky. And there I am filming this. So you can see I can check on the shop so easily within the app. You can do all the things I was just showing you from the keypad here. Off, away, home. You see the same theme here. Of course, I'm not gonna give you my code. That would be defeating the purpose of being safe. But even like, look at this. This little guy has been here for the last 2 years now. And that's helping keep track of the temperature in the shop. One of my favorite things is if you want to add a motion sensor later on, you can add a motion sensor later on. You want to add another door sensor later on, you can add all of those things as you go. So you can set up a package initially, but you can also add these features as you please. If you want more than one smoke alarm, say in the kitchen and then somewhere else, you can do that. You just add more as you go. So here's the best part. You get 20% off if you sign up for interactive monitoring, and you get your first month free if you go to simplysafe.com/RobDahm. That's simplysafe.com/RobDahm.
What the fuck is up, YouTube?
Well, I'm being outdone in my own game. What the frick is up, guys? I'm back with another amazing action-packed video for you. Don't forget to smash that like button. God, I hate that. Yeah, no, what's going on right now is actually really amazing. This is the surge tank that we showed you guys earlier with 2 of the pumps that are in the FC setup, so twice as much flow with this smaller setup. Now, the important part here is that these 2 are the phased setup for brushless pumps. So these wires, it's not power and ground, it's basically three phases. The brushless aspect of this that saves so much current is that these controllers do a lot of the controlling for the pumps. The pumps are dumb. It's like calling it basically a dumb pump. But this setup here is actually pretty simple. This is ground, power, and then the white wire is what you pulse to go from 0% to 100% fuel flow. Now, what's gonna happen on the back of the car is these will all go to one auto sport connector, and then that same connectors, all the fuel pumps that you could imagine, it'll also have a line going back here to the tank, whether it's a 10-gallon tank or the 50-gallon tank, it'll then also lift fuel up from that tank and send that and pour that into here. And I'm gonna have that pulsed as well, just so that way as the increase in need comes from here, going from 0 to 100, the increase in what's filling it back up also is increased. And because there's no pressure going on there, that pump will remain well under 8 amps. Autosport connectors code 20-16. We'll take a look at what that connector looks like. So this is gonna be a little confusing because this is the connector that needs to mount to the chassis. This is a 2016. So you see tons of bigger pins, that's good. It's not gonna connect to these. It's actually gonna be sitting there connecting from the spine or the main part of the harness. So this will be sitting something like that, and then these will then connect in to that connector. Beefy. Tons of power going through there.
I fit this in the car and it all looked good, and with a little panel that pops off, there's actually a lot of space. So I'm doing is mounting the fuel pressure regulator just right here, and it's gonna be perfect. So let's clean that up. This is mild steel, ironically. We'll just tack this guy on. This is fuel up bracket. It's actually pretty badass. So this is actually stainless, so it's gonna weld to this real nice. You just throw it down right there. You get this little bolt that comes there in the backside. Boom, look how it's all compact. I already drove this guy down. I'm hoping to hit about 50 psi base pressure. We'll see how close we are.
God, that looks good. I'm really happy with that. Like, you can see that we're using the one sensor here, and really where this sensor shines is for the oil system, but this is that Bosch sensor where it's temperature and pressure combined. That's because we're not running a flex fuel sensor. We know we're going to be running ethanol, so it doesn't matter. So when you make something as expensive and precious to yourself as this, my little harness here for all the engine stuff, you want to protect it. And one of the biggest, scariest things about this setup is that this manifold runner setup is very heavy. It's mild steel, and so it weighs a lot. And the problem is, I want this to be underneath it, whether it was sitting on the engine or sitting underneath these, all zip tied up to the bottom. The biggest problem is the engine's sitting right here. This is on top of it. As soon as you undo some of these bolts, the whole thing comes crashing down onto the engine, especially if it's not me or Isaiah working on it, which is a possibility. This harness will get crushed against the engine in this, and that is the exact opposite of what you want to do. I didn't want to threaten it. So Isaiah just went and made me what I was looking for, is something to be able to hold the harness between, but B, if it was to hit, even if it was like a piece of metal at an angle like this, like say the edge of the housing, this is a simple example, but like the edge of the housings, which do round a little bit, at least it still will hold this and have some level of protection against crushing. Very happy about that. I'm gonna make sure my harness does not actually lay on the engine. It's gonna lay inside here and then spread out from there. And so I'm really excited because all of these connectors are all made, I made them custom. For example, this one right here is gonna loop around and it's gonna have a little flange and sit exposed. I got a little cap for it. That'll sit up there. And what is that? It's my spare little setup. So if I wanna add new sensors to the front of the motor, I even have controllers in here, all different things from the ECU. Any type of sensor or output goes through this. So I can change things as I wanna go on, as I go, because look at it, this is pretty damn permanent. You're not really cutting into this harness ever, not once.
Can I show my favorite connector?
Yeah, which connector?
This is my favorite connector. This guy, I think it's like this because this is a Bosch sensor, right?
Yeah.
So it has this little, you plug that guy in there, right? And you think it's plugged in? No. Now it's plugged in. So now you can't even open it. You gotta pull the foreskin back, and then it comes. That's my favorite one.
What Isaiah's working on right now is making this a lot more like the Cosworth intake manifold, where it's like a nexus of control, mounting, widgets going left and right, and ultimately making the engine more reliable and more performance, all in right here. I love Isaiah to death, but welding is one of the bane of my existences. So look at this. This is how I had flattened this thing before. I'd done a vibe check, completely flat. It doesn't shake, it doesn't do anything, there's no air, there's no light coming out between it. But then when just simply welding this on, and mind you, he had the whole aluminum thing here, rest of the tank, that aluminum was like a heat sink, and yet even then, that's just the nature of welding, it warps. So the problem is right now, this whole side of this flange is so warped down that air, especially 30 psi plus, is going to push the gasket right out right there. So an O-ring would help with that, but really, ultimately, machine this flat is the right thing to do, so you're not stressing those other parts of it. So the fallacy would be to, okay, let's just take down this area, but you need to have the whole thing flat because it's the whole thing that connects to the other part of this. But yeah, so before it got welded, of course, there was no issue with this. That's just the nature of fabricating. It just is. We'll end up doing all the other fabricating welding because we got more flanges and shit to weld to this. I'll machine these flat at the last second. Like I even machined this one flat first level and it took like 40 thousandths out. It was so warped. It was so high up in the center area. And you can see I purposely didn't go too far down. It was like, so you can see how warped it was, even just doing it in a manual mill. It's flat now, but this is sort of stuff that I've done kind of off camera that makes the engine seal so much better. Because look at, between rotors 2 and 3, look at how little of space you have between the two to prevent air from going from one to the other. That's very, very minuscule, and you can't even fit an O-ring through there. Having that as flat as possible, make sure that once the two pieces mate together, you're not relying on a little bit of gasket maker just to prevent World War V.
Speedflow came in clutch. They gave me this whole box of speed that flows really well. Yeah. And at this point, I feel like it's a commercial, and I'm trying to sell you guys, but I actually love this stuff. Even if we weren't working with them, and I knew about this stuff before, I'd be praising them. But I got literally everything for Rotor. As far as fuel system wise goes, we are going to redo the oil system when that time comes, where we got the Y, so that way we have our fuel in, and this goes off into our 2 secondary rails now, because now we have 3 rails. We're kind of fighting back and forth on how to run the primary rail, but we're going to have a clean setup. And then Rob today just said, yeah, you could go with your hard line, from the back to the front. So I'm a hard line this hole.
One of those twin helicopters,
So I got these Dash 10 hardliners, and these things are monsters. Jesus Christ. They are huge. I have these guys set up like this throughout the chassis, and they're gonna flow fuel there and then flow fuel back. And it's gonna be pretty badass.
I saw you guys filming and I wanted to be. That's just badass.
No, this is what you can hold. Here, that's you.
This is me and the guy she told me not to worry about.
Yeah. You can put them on there.
Yeah, this is really me. So these are my custom machined fuel rails, inspired by the guys from Full Function. After I ruined theirs.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
Okay. I can only do 2 reps. I gotta do some more practice on that. But that's the primary fuel rail. 1, 2, 3, 4. If the car catches on fire, I'm straight up saying it's my own fault. And maybe a little bit of Isaiah's fault, but mostly my own fault.
Well, the car won't catch on fire. It's mostly tubes, so.
Yeah, we're taking that inspiration from the Cosworth.
Well, actually, wait. Your harness is fireproof.
That's right.
This harness is fireproof.
Yeah, so there's no other way that fire can happen other than, I don't know, dumping on the exhaust. I don't know. It's just, but my harness is fireproof. The thing that I'm actually worried about, but it seems to pass the test fine, is I went really slow and smooth on all of these, but the diameter makes sure that it's like 2/1000ths off from what it should be for the O-rings. Now, 2/1000ths on an O-ring really doesn't make a difference, but it's very important. Fuel, I don't joke around with fuel. I've been waiting to see this for a long time. Isaiah was like walking by me, and I was like, yeah, hey, we'll do the hard lines, and he's like, I'm like, happy birthday, Isaiah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
No, that's not what I want for my birthday, okay? That's not it. That's not
is.
it.
Did you have to pay for them? No, it's
I did with the card that I had. That's yours.
It's like a gift for you, for me. It's like I got you.
That is such a female thing to do.
It is, and I'm gaslighting you. You should be thankful. You're seeing my fuel injector primary rail setup finally going in. Are you tightening those before you put that middle piece on?
Yeah, because they fucked up the middle piece.
Okay.
Yeah, I told him exactly what it was to what tip and to what tip, and he did it to that tip and that tip. I said it's to the inner tip.
That's correct. That's correct. The distance that he's got right there.
No, because when I put it on, it didn't go on. So we're not going to do the hardline anymore, just because flex and movability. Obviously, it's not going to be a big deal if it does flex. I mean, but just for assurance, we're switching over to a soft line, and we shouldn't have any problems. Get in there. I even cheated them.
What your machines do? As your friend, I recommend you switch machine shops.
I put that on there. I was like, no, there's no way. And
How did I design them square? I don't know how I...
It's exact too. So
Yeah,
I cheated this one this way. I cheated that one that way.
I do know that I think it has to do with the position of the bottom holes and the way the injectors sit in there, because the injectors kind of push it to the side a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Ring health and whatnot. Better than it was before.
Yeah.
So
All this is infinitely better than it was. This is the lower intake manifold for the 4-rotor, and I've just taken it down quite nicely. You can actually see a faint line here, and I already worked this over a little bit by hand too, but it was about 25 thousandths higher on this corner, and similar to there, you can actually see where the machine couldn't get any further on the table. The table is exactly 20 inches wide, so is this. The center I didn't even touch. Maybe a little bit around these rings, but overall I took about 25 thousandths of unevenness out. So this thing's much flatter, much smoother. It never had an issue sealing, but because we welded things right here, this whole thing picked up. It heated this whole ring up enough to bend the mild steel up 25 thousandths of an inch. And so you can see the same thing I did manually a while ago. I was gonna do this, I accidentally hit the machine over here trying to get this here. But you can also see that even on this one, it was bent to where this side was sticking out. So we were leaking from rotor 1 and rotor 4, and I took this down like, I want to say like 30 thousandths in the center with the manual mill, because that was the only thing I could get to it. I spent a little time using a stone with about 240 grit just to really take down the major rough edges, because it is within 5 thousandths of smooth, and since there's gaskets, that doesn't bother me anymore. But she's ready to be basically repainted, because as beautiful as all this is, it's mild steel and it'll rust almost immediately.
that shit's for sure not going anywhere. So these are the two hoses that feed the surge from the big tank, and then the hose that returns from the surge to the big tank. So this would be the end of the rear third. I have the front third, so now it'll just be the middle after I install these two hoses. Hose. So we zip tie this to the fuel filter. This is the return from the surge tank. So if the surge tank happens to overflow, it goes through this line back into the main tank, and it's kind of recirculates forever. So zip tie that guy there. This guy comes around right here. And this guy comes around right here. So we have two 120s and a 90. Look at that real clean, slick, uniform look. These two are gonna come together. They're friends. And that's the third done. I don't know if you guys remember, but we had a problem where the fitting was hitting this and it wouldn't close properly. So what that was just the 10 ORB to 10 male fitting being too tall. So I replaced that one with the speed flow one, which dropped it down a considerable amount. So now we clear with no issues. So this one comes around, goes to the fuel filter right before hitting the surge tank. This from the fuel filter goes into the surge tank, so that's pretty clean. And then out of the fuel system, it's another fuel filter, so that we get double filtered as we go by. So that covers all the backside of the car. So from the surge tank, when you go to the two primary rails, and I was gonna have these hard lines in between. I got them straight so I could bend them up, but this actually kinked up. So I ended up not using these and just ended up using the PTFE hose all the way through, which actually came out really good. So that goes up to the Y, to the two primary rails, and then just for the two secondary rails, I guess it would be. And from one rail, it goes down to the primary rails, real nice 6 line, and that comes back and returns. And so we have 2 lines going to the regulator, and then 1 line coming back, and it just came out really, really nice. Underneath there, it is kind of a pain in the ass. There's not a lot of room, but we actually maximized all the room and came out way nicer than before.